Hi there, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Michelle Fainensteel of Dirigo Food Safety, and I'm a food safety veterinarian, and I'm making this recording for other veterinarians and for hog farmers who have asked me a whole bunch of questions about swine parasitology. And I thought I'd make this recording. I'm actually delivering this to the Oklahoma State Vet School Swine Parasitology Club, so thanks so much for having me today. And I hope you enjoy the presentation. I will be around on Skype after this presentation so that you can ask questions. And if you're not listening to the just-in-time recording for this and you have any questions, my phone number is there on the screen, or you can always send me an email at michelle@dirigofoodsafety.com. And we're going to spend the next, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes or so talking about swine parasites and swine parasitology and how veterinarians and hog farmers can be speaking the same language. All right. So when we talk about speaking the same language, we're going to talk about different production methodologies. Veterinarians have to understand what different production methodologies for swine are out there. And hog farmers need to know why they're using which production methodology and what that means for the health of their herd. All right, then we're going to dive into what we call practical parasitology for practitioners. So that's both veterinary practitioners and hog farmers, okay, because you are also hog health practitioners if you run a hog farm. And then we're going to spend some time talking about why on earth this is useful. Now, I will tell you one of the reasons this is useful is because we're doing swine parasitology for fun and profit. Only be doing the things that we're doing as a business if they make money. Businesses make money, hobbies cost money, okay? Keep that in mind, please. Because at the end of the day, hogs need a job, and that job is to be food and to make a profit for the farmer. And one of their jobs is to create that economic benefit, and we all have to be aware of that. So let's just jump right on in. So, as you're probably all well aware, there are different production methodologies around the United States for different kinds of hogs. The production on the left is a concentrated animal feeding operation. This by far is the most popular kind of hog production that we have in America. And 99-point-something% of our hogs are made in confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. But the other picture that you see there with hogs on pasture, that's a pastured feeding operation. All right, and those are hogs that are raised outside. Their mamas give birth. You'll notice she's suckling her pigs, and she's not lying on any of them because everybody has room to move around. Different production methodologies mean different things from a herd health perspective, and it's incredibly important to know how you're doing that. All right, are you only pretending to pasture and you really actually have too many animals and too high a stocking density? Are you in a really spread out animal operation and you have appropriate stocking densities? Or are you in a real CAFO where you have to deal with the nose-to-nose contact and fecal-oral transmission of everything you can possibly imagine with your pigs? All right, it's incredibly important to know that. And it's also incredibly important to know that the varying market labels that we have out there, like USDA organic or GAP certified or those sorts of things, a lot of those are, some of them are humane handling and don't really have anything to do with herd health. USDA organic just means that the producer is adhering to the organic standard. Both the producer on the left and the right can adhere to that organic standard and gain that label. All right, so you can't rely on the market indicators like that about the production methodologies. You actually have to get out there and you have to look. All right, you miss more by not looking than by not knowing. Whether you're looking at hogs for reproduction or hogs for weight gain or hogs for you're scooping through their poop for parasites. You miss more by not looking than by not knowing. Okay? So what do these different production methodologies really get down to? What does it really mean? It means a difference in price. Okay, the CAFO raised hogs, those are hogs that are raised for a low profit margin and a very, very high volume. I mean, very high volume. The pasture-raised hogs are hogs that are much lower volume and much higher profit margins. Okay, we sell that for an awful lot more money. So, but what do you mean by for an awful lot more money? Well, let's talk about how a hog becomes dinner. All right, it's unpleasant, I know, but you know what? It's really imperative that we understand this because all these animals, they die, okay? And they have to die for something, and their death has to mean something. And the work that goes into raising them, that has to mean something. And by working hard, veterinary students out there, on your swine parasitology and understanding this stuff, you honor the work that goes into raising the food that we eat. And for the other practitioners, for the hog farmers and stuff out there, this stuff is really important to know because if you've got heavy parasite loads, you're not making as much money as you could have. So let's walk out what this means. All right, so hogs, all meat, are sold on a per pound basis. All right, and we have different kinds of poundage that we sell. So there's a live weight. That's the price of the animal while the animal's standing there looking at you under its own volition. All right, so that's the live weight. Once you kill an animal, you have what we call the hot hanging weight. Okay, that's after you do the drop. All right, so you take out the viscera, you take out the intestines and the stomach and all that sort of stuff, which weighs a lot. You get the drop, we call that. All right. After you have the drop, you have the hot hanging weight. Then the carcasses, by and large, they get rinsed off, they get trimmed off. There are, a bunch of food safety things that have to happen. Okay. And then they go into the cooler. Well, as that carcass cools off, it loses water and its weight decreases. All right, and that gives us yet another weight. That gives us the hanging weight. All right, and then when you take that hanging carcass, you're going to split it in half. All right, and you're going to get a half a carcass, and that carcass is going to be cut down into, we don't really kind of have primals in swine, but we do forequarters and hindquarters, chops and roasts, and whatever it is that you're going to do with it. That's the cut weight. Okay. As you go down that list from live to pork chop, the weight of each individual thing goes down, the weight of the carcass as a whole goes down, and the price goes up. But the difference is that a commodity hog, starting at a live weight, when I wrote this, it had a future of 60 cents a pound. Organic hogs, we don't do futures in non-commodity agriculture. But the live weight of an organic hog was $2 a pound, and the local heritage hogs can get to be $4 and up. That is a gigantic difference. And I'm sorry, that wasn't live weights, that was hanging weights of those things. Okay. That's a huge, that's like an order of magnitude difference there. That makes a great big difference in how your farmer makes money. Okay. So understanding the production methodology and understanding how your farmer makes money is incredibly important to having a good relationship with them as a veterinarian. And explaining that and making sure your veterinarian understands that, hog farmers who are watching this, is also incredibly important. There's also a gigantic difference in muscle quality. Okay, so a heritage raised hog, which is what you can see, that nice red meat there, that's not beef, that's pork, all right? That's a heritage raised hog. I forget whose website I stole that from, but it was one of the buddies I hang out with on Salt Cured Pig Facebook group. If you want to learn more about curing pork, that's the place to be. Little shout out there. So on the left there, that is a marbled cut from a hog. On the right there, that's pork, the other white meat. That's commodity. The marketplace is increasingly able to pay for and demanding the pork on the right. We're kind of tired of pork that tastes like chicken, and along with some other things that CAFOs bring to our communities that we don't like quite so much. So That muscle quality is incredibly important. The ability to lay down fat on muscle, because believe it or not, hogs were, originally developed to have a lot of fat on them. And breeding that fat out of them has bred in some other issues, and I'd be happy to take questions on that at the end of the program. But you only get that muscle quality that you're looking there, that good marbling, at a high plane of nutrition. And you cannot have a high plane of nutrition if you have parasites. So, and why is that? Because a parasite is one that eats at the table of another, or, especially in the case of intestinal parasites, those parasites actually eat the food that you're feeding your pig, and use that to perpetuate their own life cycle, not the pig's life cycle. And you can't get good muscle quality with high parasite loads. Whether we're talking about gastrointestinal parasites or extra gastrointestinal parasites, parasites that are in other places besides the GI tract. All right, parasites take nutrients from the hog and use those nutrients to perpetuate the parasite life cycle. That decreases hog carcass quality, it decreases meat quality, it decreases thriftiness, it decreases the ability for the hog to reproduce and put enough piglets on the ground. It has so many implications, okay? And so it's incredibly important to understand what the parasites do and how stocking densities influence parasites. Because the truth of the matter is, the higher the stocking density, the more parasite problems you are bound to have. It's not quite a one-to-one relationship, but it is awfully close. So when we talk about these parasites, the vast majority of these parasites are internal parasites in the GI tract. They come from fecal-oral contamination. Pigs that are not all up in each other's business aren't going to go around eating other pigs' feces if they have other things that they'd rather eat, okay? Animals can be naturally porphyrophagic, that's totally true, but they will often pick something that is not feces to eat if it's available. It's not generally the first thing that they eat unless that's what they've been taught because they've been put in high concentration of other hogs. Okay, so I will admit I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. We call parasites traveling companions because you get a lot of parasites when you're in the Peace Corps. So we've broken up these parasites into the internal parasites. There are parasites that affect the gastrointestinal tract, that's GIT, versus non-gastrointestinal tract internal parasites. Those are the parasites, frankly, that have the most to do with American hog economics, i.e. trichinella, so stay tuned for that. And then let's talk about external parasites because, whoa, Nelly, those can make your pig miserable, all right? So, parasites on the inside in the GI tract, parasites outside the GI tract, and then parasites on the outside of the pig. All right, so now, it's incredibly important that everybody understand the concept of a differential diagnosis. You know, whether you're a hog farmer or a veterinarian, you gotta create a differential list. All right, and your differential is, what are all the things that these could be, and what can I take off of that list? All right, there are some general rules that we follow when we're talking about parasites. All right, if there are neurological symptoms present, it is probably not parasites. I will tell you, hogs get rabies. All right, if you have pastured hogs and you have neurological pastured hogs and you are in a rabies endemic area, call your veterinarian because that can be incredibly serious. All right. So there are other swine diseases, and I'll go through some differentials and stuff like that. There are other swine diseases that cause neurologic symptoms, and neurologic symptoms are things like head pressing, drooling, circling, stumbling, that kind of stuff. Okay. If we're looking at multiple different systems being affected, if the hog has diarrhea and a rash, it's probably not parasites. All right, if you've got two systems that are affected, it's pretty rare that that's going to be parasites. If you have only one system affected, and that's the GI system, all right, and the pig has blowout bloody diarrhea, also probably not parasites. Okay, and those are so those are your kind of general things about whether you should be thinking parasites or you should be thinking something more serious. All right. In the line of in the list of differential diagnoses, parasites are extremely easy to deal with by and large, as opposed to neurodiseases that we see and that sort of thing. And so we like parasites because we can fix them. And so it's incredibly important to like rule out other diseases and rule in parasites. And this is a general list to help you get started on that. Okay, so here's the list of parasites that I'm going to go over this with you. If anybody would like this handout, I'm happy to give it to them. Send me an email, michelle@dirigofoodSafety.com. All right. And I will give you this list. All right. For those of you who are studying for boards, nose to the grindstone, these are the ones you're going to have to know. I did get these questions on my boards. I also got a lot of questions about parrots, but we're not going to talk about that because I don't treat parrots. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so we have ascarids. This is an incredibly common one. This is all of these pictures I have as best as I could get, you know, trolling the internet. We have what that worm looks like, both from a, you know, like a macro perspective, like, hey, this just came out of my pig's rear end, what am I supposed to do? And then what it looks like after you put it in a fecal float and look at it, okay? But this is what ascarids look like. Roundworms are incredibly common. They can have huge numbers of them. This can cause an intussusception in piglets, which can be really, really problematic, all right? This is the sort of pig equivalent of hooks. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. I could probably pronounce that word at one point in my life, but this isn't it. I want to point out to the vet students here, when you're looking at a ovoid shape like that, those ovoid shapes, they have what we call polarity. Their ends are different, all right, and they will have an operculum, all right, and macro acanthus here has a sort of clear operculum at the pointy end of which is the pointy end of the egg, okay? These, you know, if you look at the body has, it kind of looks like two different parts of the body, two different worms kind of stuck together, all right? And these have this really disgusting mouth parts that like dig into the intestines and suck out nutrition from the pig. It's awesome. Esophagostomum, these are nodule worms. These are pretty common. They look like they have a whole lot of eggs in one big old egg sac. And you can only see these. You're not going to see these in the poop. Please don't tell me you got rid of worms with your pig by giving it diatomaceous earth, because I assure you, you didn't see all the worms fall out. All right, you just saw the visible worms fall out. And if you've got that sort of worm load, you may have more than one worm. All right, so because you can't see everything with the naked eye, that's why diatomaceous earth is not an appropriate anti-helminth, as we call it. All right. So stomach worms, these you can only see on necropsy, but if you're killing your own pigs, I highly recommend taking a look at that stomach, especially if you're looking to use that stomach to as a casing for the meat. You got to turn that stomach inside out and look at it when you scrape it, and look for these nodules. Pigs get stomach worms, and it looks like this. Pigs can also get ulcers, which is a sign that you're grinding your feed too fine. This is incredibly rare in pastured pigs, obviously, because they're not eating that much feed. But in confinement operations, this is not that rare at all, and is a pretty leading cause of pig death because they bleed out from their ulcers. And their ulcers kind of look a lot like that. So if you have pastured pigs and you see this kind of nodulated part of the stomach, I would put Hyostrongylus high on your differential list of things that are going wrong with your pig herd. Strongyloides, these things are teeny. You can only see them on microscopic section. They're hard to find in the poop. They are incredibly, they can be pretty incredibly devastating. They burrow into the wall, the villa of the intestines in the pig, and they can, you often find these in concert with other parasites and bacterial overgrowth, giving your hogs, giving your babies diarrhea. But that's what strongyloides looks like under section and under a microscope. Whipworms. Okay, so this has this is bi-operculated. I love the word operculum. Whips. Don't confuse these with the megacanthocytes because they kind of look alike, but the whip part of it is really, really much longer, and the eggs look completely different. So flip back, when you got this presentation, when you got the PowerPoint, flip back and make sure that you can differentiate the whips from the macrocanthocytes because, and the best way to do it is on fecal float and looking at that bi-percolated egg. Pig whipworms are communicable to people. This is called a zoonotic disease. So I highly recommend using, and I don't believe I have to say this, but if you're doing fecal floats and you're doing stuff with pig poop, wear gloves. Remember, gloving is not a substitution for hand washing. So wash your hands afterwards, okay, because you can pick this up. All right, coccidiosis. Tons and tons of animals get coccidiosis. This is what pig coccidia looks like. And you can only diagnose this on fecal float. It is often a component of pig scours and can lead to, it leads to a lot of intestinal inflammation and bacterial overgrowth in pig scours. So if you're having a problem with scours, you often have to treat with a coccidiostat. All right, so that gets us into treatments. So I have listed out for all of the ones where treatment is available. These are the treatments. So basically, fenbendazole, pyrantel, diclorvo is pretty hard to find sometimes, levamisole, and then of course for the coccidia you have to use coccidiostats. Amprolium is the most common one. That's usually what you get when you get medicated feed. Organic producers cannot use any of these. All right, so you have to know whether or not your producer is organic. And you have to figure out how to treat the sow and treat the environment. We always treat sows before they farrow. So when you're going out there and you're doing your farrow sure shots and for parvo and lepto and things like that, talk to the farmers about what they're doing about parasites so that you can deworm the mom, if at all possible, before she gives birth, all right? Because there are worms, roundworms in pigs as well as in dogs that can be passed through the milk, okay? And so you want to be able to interrupt that life cycle, all right? All right, so there are some rule outs that we have for GI parasites. Sometimes all of these things will come together, but there are coronaviruses, hopefully you've vaccinated against those. Salmonella, very common component of pig scours. Again, zoonotic, wash your hands, wear gloves. Sick pigs, a lot of the time that can come to us. TGE, transmissible gastroenteritis, that's the paint the wall bloody diarrhea. It's really delightful. And then rotavirus. Rotavirus makes the little piggies so sick. They are generally a lot sicker with rotavirus than they will be with just a more common parasite load. Okay, but all of these, if you have these going through your barn, that's an indication that you need to improve your nutritional plan. You need to improve your vaccination program. And you need to have fewer hogs per square foot of wherever you're raising them, because that's how you keep it from communicating. That's keep any disease from communicating. All right, so we have 4 non-GI intestinal parasites that we are going to go over. I'm going to spend a little extra time on trichinella because those who are going into production medicine with hogs, if you are going into like rural large animal medicine and you have people who are trying to make a living off of their hogs, you're going to have to be conversant in trichinella and how to prevent it. All right, Staphylococcus, kidney worm. I have always wondered if I was going to have a vet school classmate who named their kid Stephanie after taking parasitology, and I never did. I did get an Amelia though. All right, so Staphylococcus dentatus, you will find those on necropsy only. And here's the trick question, which if you can't figure out the answer to, I will answer in the question and answer period. Where do you see the worms for Stephanoris? All right, I want you to think about that because that will give you a great indication about what kind of worm you have. Megastrongylus. So Megastrongylus is a lungworm. Lots and lots of animals have lungworms. And when you have a cough in your barn, you got to think about Megastrongylus. So they cough, they swallow the egg, and then the egg matures in the gastrointestinal tract, and they drop it in their feces, and then another pig picks it up. So this is actually fecally orally transmitted. It's really important to keep coughing pigs downwind and down water from healthy pigs. But if you have unthrifty coughing pigs, get your vet out and do a fecal float, and that's what the Megastrongylus look like on float. All right, trichinella. So trichinella is a disease of great economic importance here in America, and that's because we used to have it. In most hogs raised now for food, we absolutely don't have it. However, our laws have not caught up with that. And trichinella is actually a pretty serious problem in other parts of the world, as are a lot of parasites. So trichinella is a worm, it's a roundworm that insists generally in the diaphragm of host animals. People can get it. We are a dead-end host, but makes people really, really, really sick. Okay. By and large, the trichinella out in the environment is not coming at all from our domesticated pigs. It's coming from feral pigs. It's transmitted by rats and other rodents. We have trichinella in the bear population. Apparently, the bear trichinella is actually really resistant to freezing. I guess it's evolved to make its own antifreeze, which is nice. Trichinella, it's not pictured there in the CDC life cycle, but trichinella is also incredibly common in walruses. So if you are working in First Nations communities and they eat a lot of walrus, and they eat that walrus raw, they are at significant risk for trichinella. So, trichinella is the reason we cook our pork. And for those of us who are working in kind of the new world of pastured hogs and dry cured pork, when we write our HACCP plans, so HACCP, for those of you who are not familiar with it, hazard analysis for critical control points. When you write a HACCP plan for any value-added production in pork, you have to control for trichinella. If you have, if you're just doing retail cuts that are being sold raw that your consumer will cook, you don't have to control for trichinella. But yeah, so trichinella, if you are exporting, you must test for trichinella. You must test in-house, and you have to do it exactly the way the USDA wants you to do it. It's pretty complicated. Happy to answer other questions about it, but this is the worm that insists in the muscle. Okay, so you find it in the diaphragm. All right, in heavily infected animals with trichinella, when you cut the meat, apparently it feels like sand because it has a silica sheath that it excretes to protect itself in the muscle and hide itself from the immune tract or the immune system. All right, toxoplasmosis. So your very own Dr. Susan Little there at Oklahoma is one of the world's leading experts on toxoplasmosis. And toxoplasmosis, and I'm trying to quote Susan here, but basically toxoplasmosis, it's a parasite that has a cat, rodent, sometimes pig life cycle. It gets into pregnant women and it can cause pretty significant issues. Women can miscarry, kids are born blind. There are countries like France who, if you are negative on IgG for toxoplasmosis at the beginning of your pregnancy, they will test you every month of your pregnancy and treat you for toxoplasmosis if you seroconvert while you're pregnant. All right, this is really, really serious for developing fetuses. It's really serious for anybody who's immune compromised. And as Susan says, the toxoplasmosis burden is not your cat, but it's all cats. It's the burden of felids in your environment, okay? And so if you're on a farm and you have lots of cats, lots of rats or mice, and lots of pigs, you're kind of bound to have a pretty high toxoplasmosis background noise, if you want to call it that. Cats don't shed for very long. When they shed an awful lot of the, I think it's the epizooites, but you can, that's all in the PowerPoint presentation. And so it's that background noise of how many cats shedding how much virus, or how much of the parasite in the environment, and then how is it being carried. It's a pretty, we're discovering it's really pretty complex life cycle and environmental impact. This is a classic case of how we have to address this through a One Health paradigm. We have to address the environment and where the cats go. We have to address the animals and how they are dewormed, how we take care of toxoplasmosis in cats, and then of course we have to address the human medicine aspect of that. The USDA is becoming increasingly aware that toxoplasmosis can be a problem in pigs, and put out a guidance, I think a year and a half ago, that was also the guidance for trichinella that included toxoplasmosis. And so they are increasingly looking at hog operations and slaughterhouses to see whether or not toxoplasmosis is actually reasonably likely to occur or not reasonably likely to occur. All right, and for the hog producers out there, I'm more than happy to have some conversations with you. Send me an email, again, michelle@dirigofoodSafety.com, and we can talk about how to make that less likely to occur in your population. But basically, cats are not an organic method of pest control. You've got to keep your cats and your pigs separate for an awful lot of reasons, but parasite transmission is sure big one of them. Okay, so then let's talk about treatment of these non-GI internal parasites. Again, if your client is an organic producer, they can't do any of this. All right, so the only thing that they can do is management of their feeding operation and keeping rodents out of their feeding operation and that sort of thing. All right, keeping pigs away from each other. Fenbendazole is the drug of choice for all these external or non-GI internal parasites. But I also want to point out that especially in the case of trichinella, one of the biggest things that we have to do to prevent the transmission of trichinella is no garbage feeding. Okay, specifically no garbage feeding of meat. It is illegal to feed pigs meat that has not been cooked, and by cooked I mean boiled for an hour in a garbage cooker that probably your state inspects. All right, do not get restaurant scraps and backfeed to your pigs. Don't do it. It's completely terrible, and there's not enough fenbendazole in the entire world to rescue you if you do that. Okay, so those are the treatments. Vet students, fenbendazole, there you go. Look it up when you need it. All right. Non-GI internal parasites can present as a lot of different things. Like ill-looking pigs, unthrifty pigs, they can have a lot of things going wrong with them, some more common than others. But there are some, here's a list of rule-outs. You notice some of them are pretty, coronavirus and salmonella, those also occur with GI parasites. PRRS, porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome. That's one of the porcine, that kind of falls in the pantheon of the porcine stress syndromes. PEDV, porcine epidemic diarrhea virus. You got to keep that in mind for unthrifty pigs. Then pasteurellosis and mycobacterium, those can show up in some pretty weird ways in pigs, like in joints and things like that, okay? So those are some rule outs for non-GI parasites. All right, so, but really, truly, folks, the trick to having low parasite loads is to prevent it, all right? And you're gonna have to make a choice. Whether you are a hog farmer or a veterinarian, you are going to have to choose between stocking densities and drugs, all right? And it's not just about parasites that you're gonna have to make that choice. It's about a lot of things, but especially with parasites. We use drugs to overcome stocking densities. Don't kid yourself that it's any other way. All right, we use drugs to overcome stocking densities no matter what disease you're talking about. So if you have appropriate stocking densities, and I gotta tell you, concentrated animal feeding operations, not appropriate stocking densities. Sunshine is the best disinfectant for a reason. Pigs need to be in a place where they can get away from each other for a lot of different reasons, okay? And the sunshine needs to get in there and be able to kill parasites, all right? Backfeeding. Backfeeding is a practice where you have piglets that die. If you have a die-off of your piglets, you feed those piglets back to the sows and the gilts to inoculate them against whatever is going wrong. The last time we did this on a mass scale was with the porcine epidemic diarrhea virus outbreak, which is turns out to be a coronavirus. It was really devastating, happened mostly on organic hog operations because it came to us through the port in Detroit. And organic pig feed from China. But that's backfeeding. Do not backfeed without advice from your veterinarian. Veterinarians do not allow backfeeding without advice from your state veterinarian, okay? If you've got a disease outbreak so bad that you're considering backfeeding, absolutely call your state vet. They're all very good people and they are dying to talk to you before you do such things. Okay, garbage feeding. I addressed garbage feeding a little bit. Garbage feeding is a terrible idea for a lot of different reasons. If you are doing garbage feeding, as we say, garbage in, garbage out, you don't know what plane of nutrition your animal is at. Pigs were not actually designed to grow up on M&Ms and Oreos and bakery waste and that sort of thing. If you are trying to produce a high quality hog, that you are going to sell for a premium, don't feed it bakery waste. What can I tell you? The muscles, you're going to cut out a copa to hang, and it's going to be mushy. All right, so no bakery waste. And then you really have to look at what your pasture versus confinement situation is. Even pastured pigs are confined at some points in their lives, you know. They don't, when there's 3 feet of snow outside, a lot of them are inside. So you got to be really understanding about what the cycle is and what the life cycle is of any parasites in your area or other things that you're seeing, so that you can appropriately pasture versus confine or treat with the appropriate level of drugs. Okay, so with that, let's get us into the external parasites of swine. These are the 6 most common external parasites. There are probably more, but these are the ones that you're gonna come across. All right, so mange. Pigs get mange just like everybody else. I tried to look for a picture of a skin scraping of mange on pigs, and I just could not find one. So anyway, that's what a mangy pig looks like. They're truly very itchy and miserable looking, and they're generally itching themselves raw. Mange is different from lice. You can see the lice on pigs. All right, so if you're seeing things crawling through the hair, and these things are not subtle. Like, there are very few things in pigs that are subtle. I can't actually think of any of them. But these lice are disgusting, and you can see them crawling through the hair. So, and these lice they're terribly itchy, and they will cause a great deal of unthriftiness, and you got to treat everybody. Ringworm, communicable to people. Okay, so if you notice that you've got like things on your hands, things on your face that look like ringworm, pigs get ringworm. It's generally young pigs. Ringworm is often communicated by kittens. All right, so if you have barn cats and you have kittens around the around the barn, oftentimes it's the kittens who bring the ringworm, and they don't have to touch the pigs to get it. They could just rub up against the barn, then the pig comes along, rubs up against the barn, and then you have an outbreak of ringworm. Ticks. As our world gets warmer and our environment changes and we have more sylvan habitats and things like that, we have more rodents and we have more ticks. All right, all sorts of ticks. What kind of tick gets on your pig is kind of dependent upon where you live, but pigs get the same bacterial diseases from ticks that everybody else does. All right, they are not that different from horses or dogs or cows. So if you have heavy tick burdens, one, I would get poultry. And you might as well go whole hog and get guinea fowl. Guinea fowl are particularly good at keeping your tick population down if you don't want to live with guinea fowl, which I completely understand. You can try ducks, you can try chickens. Peahens are also really good, though probably just as bad from an annoyance perspective as guinea fowl. But if you've got pretty significant tick-borne disease and you start seeing swollen joints and things like that, you gotta look at bacteria sequela. All right, because I'm sure there are pigs out there with Lyme disease. All right, you can always pick the ticks off, talk to your veterinarian, and go get the ticks tested. All right. So, but ticks are, I mean, they're as obvious on, if not more obvious on a pig than they are on a dog. So, keep a lookout for them. Mosquito bites. If you have non-hairy pigs, look, you gotta keep a lookout for mosquito bites. And it's incredibly important to know that pigs are the host animal for Japanese encephalitis. This is one of the encephalitides that is communicable to people. We don't generally worry about West Nile, Eastern equine, or Western equine, but we do worry about Japanese encephalitis. So if you have a neurological pig and you have a bad mosquito area or they're low-lying areas, you got to think about Japanese encephalitis and keep a gimlet eye out for the people who interact with those pigs, that they are not also getting sick. Okay, so the rule outs for external parasites. If you guys have this prevalent in your area, pseudorabies, Ajewski's disease, that's the herpes virus of pigs. It's also called mad itch, and if you ever see a pig with Ajewski's disease, you'll know why it's called mad itch. They're like about to take off their own skin. Diamond skin disease, so-called because it looks like diamonds on the skin. You can Google it. That's also known as erysipelas. It's a strep erysipelas, I believe. And then this is I have to talk about this. Parasites, external parasites, fly strike. Pigs that fight, pigs that are outside, pigs that are inside, they get fly strike. Please do not be the vet that misses screwworm. We had count them, 3 veterinarians last year in Florida that missed screwworms, New World screwworms, and we had to do a screwworm eradication for the first time in like decades. And we had to bring out of retirement the one veterinarian who knew how to do this. All right, that guy's old. Don't make us bring him out again. Do not miss screwworms. All right, those are the rule outs. Those are the common parasites that you're going to see. And what I'd really like to emphasize with you is that as a veterinarian, you have to understand the management practices that your herd managers, your farmers are doing, all right? And one of the biggest one probably is PQA, the Pork Quality Assurance Program. Now, I know there are farmers who don't like PQA, but the truth is that the pork checkoff folks, Pork Board, is looking to get PQA to create a trichina-free compartment, as we call it, from the OIE in Paris, which means that pork raised under a verified, validated PQA program can be considered trichinella-free. That's going to mean something for like whole muscle cures, okay? So understand management practices. Really have a conversation with yourself about what does it mean to use drugs and what does it mean to use stocking densities. Different veterinarians have different answers to this question, and they, you're the one that has to sleep at night. Okay, there are ways that I think about this, which I probably communicated in this talk, but. And but you got to think about how we're using drugs and how we're using stocking densities when it comes to parasites. All right, and then the other thing that I would like you to think about is the One Health implications of your choices. Drugs are not without side effects. There are very few side effects besides more open pasture for pasturing pigs. Okay, and so whatever choices that you make around drugs and treatment of animals, whether it's for parasites or for other diseases, think about the One Health implications of that. How are you affecting the environment? How are you affecting the animals? And how are you affecting both the people that interact with them and the population as a whole? All right. So that's our presentation for tonight, and I look forward to answering your questions. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, this is Dr. Michelle Fanninsteel of Dirigo Food Safety. We're a food safety consulting practice up here in beautiful Yarmouth, Maine, and you can get in touch with me at Michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L-E, at dirigofoodsafety.com, and that's D-I-R-I-G-O, foodsafety.com. Thanks so much, and have a great day.